Does Queenstown have a problem? Because there's a lake that could cause something, and there's the Alpine Fault, and there's the shizzy that is hitting the fizzy at the Pacific Ring of Fire. I've reported about this. So one viewer actually pointed me towards this. Thank you for that. You're living in New Zealand, because in my last video I said, is New Zealand next if we look at the earthquakes? Because right now we've seen 4 large earthquakes hit across the Pacific in just days. Yesterday, 6.0 in the middle of Australia, after like Indonesia, Tonga, and Vanuatu. You see it here on the map, and then you see where New Zealand is. And we already had yesterday a magnitude 5.0. New Zealand at a trench, not looking good there, because that's a dangerous earthquake zone. And that continues through today. So these are just the earthquakes today, magnitude 2.5 or higher. And I'm showing you the map also magnitude 4.5 or higher. And you see the locations, right? You still see lots of aftershocks in Indonesia, by the way. We're reaching, I'm not showing you all of them right now because I don't want to go back 30 days, because then you see so many earthquakes, it might be confusing. But we're reaching 1,000 aftershocks there. Lots with magnitude 6 in the higher ranges, so absolutely crazy. But we're still having aftershocks in Tonga and also in Vanuatu. And then you see, I said yesterday, yeah, you know, when we were asking, is New Zealand being influenced by the big ones? Well, the one that we're dealing with in Tonga, it's the same problematic zone there. And we see there are earthquakes now coming closer to New Zealand. So we've seen the middle of Australia shaking yesterday. Very unusual. So right now, people are asking a serious question. We've talked about this, is New Zealand next? We discussed this in my previous video, but there's something else. Because what most people don't realize is that Queenstown is sitting next to something that is far more dangerous than just shaking. And that's what we need to talk about. We just saw a major movement across the Pacific Ring of Fire, multiple large events stacking up. And when you start seeing clusters like this, it doesn't automatically mean that the next one is guaranteed, but it tells you that the system is active. And New Zealand sits right in the middle of that system. So does this shift into local danger? Now here's where it gets serious, so listen carefully. And before you do, please give this video a like and a hype, share it with your friends, leave me a comment. Doesn't cost you anything, but it supports my channel. Thank you so much. Queenstown, New Zealand, one of the most famous places in New Zealand, I have to say. It sits right beside Lake Wakatipu. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, surrounded by steep mountain walls. So if you're watching that channel, you might get an idea what I'm hinting at. Scientists have been warning for years, actually, about the disaster that could happen there, because this is not just an earthquake risk zone. It's a chain reaction zone. Chain reaction. Water, steep mountains, earthquakes. You might, if you watch my channel on a regular basis, you might get an idea. Look at fjords in Norway, in Alaska. Look at Bloodden. So maybe you get what I'm saying. I'm getting to the moment where shizzy could hit the fizzy. Because if a major earthquake hits there, especially from the dangerous Alpine Fault, it's not just the shaking that you need to worry about if you live there. That shaking can trigger massive landslides from those steep slopes directly into the lake. And what then happens, you're just not dealing with rock coming down, you're displacing water, and that can generate tsunami-like waves inside the lake itself. We've seen this in Alaska and Norway, up to 2,000 feet. Sounds crazy, but it has a bathtub effect, right? If you have steep walls surrounding the water, you sit in your bathtub, you plunge in, or you lift your leg and down, you displace water and it gets high, flows over your bathtub, right? So imagine millions of tons of rock hitting the water at once. A wall of water racing across Lake Wakatipu, heading towards the shoreline communities, heading there with almost no warning, because that wave comes fast. So first you're being rattled by the earthquake. That kind of gets you immobile, probably, if it's the Alpine Fault. And then, maybe you just get back on your feet, or you're lucky that you survived it, nothing crumbled above you, then the wave comes, right? This is usually normally just subduction zone nightmare scenario, like the big one, Cascadia Fault, Japan, stuff like that, right? But this is exactly what scientists have been mapping for quite a while. They have been mapping the lake floor, and they have been studying the slope stability in this region. How stable is that slope? So now, to be clear, there is no official warning saying that one specific mountain is about to collapse tomorrow. But what is real is that region has a major fault, the Alpine Fault, capable of magnitude 8+ earthquakes, steep, unstable terrain, and a lake that can amplify the consequences big time. So what we need to talk about in light of all these huge earthquakes that we're seeing, earthquake risk for New Zealand, right? But also a connected risk, like domino effect. So when people ask, well, what we're seeing right now is New Zealand next, the better question might be, what happens if it is? And I want to make this clear. The Alpine Fault is not just another fault. This is the real monster. It's the main plate boundary between the Pacific Plate and the Australian Plate. And it runs along New Zealand's South Island. And why is this so dangerous? Produces earthquakes, magnitude 8+. It does not rupture often, but when it does, it's huge. Last major ruptures roughly every 250 to 350 years. The last one, 1717. So this is considered overdue, and that's a problem. So what the science says right now, 75% chance of rupture in the next 50 years, 82% chance that this rupture is a magnitude 8+. And as we learned in my video about the unrest that is happening there right now, it's not that they can directly trigger the Alpine Fault, but seismic waves travel. Yeah, they weaken, but if a fault is already locked and loaded and shortly before doing something, these strong earthquakes could give it the rest, right? Especially the unrest that's happening there in Tonga. Magnitude 8+. What does that mean in this region? Violent ground motion across the South Island, roads cut off, isolation, landslides everywhere in alpine terrain, entire slopes falling. And this is where the lake scenario comes in, right? Mountain sliding into the lakes, because Lake Wakatipu is basically a glacial valley filled with water. That's why it's so steep. Very deep, very steep sided, surrounded by unstable slopes out of the water, but also underneath the surface. Perfect for a big landslide generated wave. Perfect setting. So how would a tsunami form there? It's not like in the ocean, right? Earthquake hits, we have the massive rockfall or slope collapse. Millions of tons of rock hit the lake. Water is violently displaced. Wave shoots across the lake. How big could it be? Could be tens of meters, dozens of feet near the source. Worst case scenario. Strong, fast-moving waves across the lakes. Severe shoreline flooding and destruction is possible. Near the impact zone could be up to as high as 30 meters, 100 feet in an extreme scenario. Further away, if we're talking about the Queenstown side, likely much smaller, but still dangerous. A 1-meter wave can be very, very ending. So could still flood the low-lying areas and waterfronts. And remember, that after the big earthquake. You're totally unprepared for that wave. Where do you run, right? So this is not, I want to make that clear too, like a full lake wipeout scenario, not a 100-meter mega wave across the lake, but it probably will be localized, but violent, fast, and with very little warning. And unlike with ocean tsunamis, what we also do not have in the lake, no warning system, no long travel time, no time to get away, happens within minutes. And after a big earthquake, you need minutes to settle yourself, to orient yourself. Where can you run? There might be roads damaged, collapsed buildings. You can't run that fast. That's the real danger. And this is the part that most people don't understand. So I hope you like this, guys. I hope this was helpful. Check out my other videos where I really describe what's happening there. And also, since we're talking about mountain collapse, something is breaking apart in Europe, and this is really insane. So check out one of the videos here, and I see you in the next one. And thank you for supporting the channel with your likes, your hypes, your supers, clicking the join button to become a member, for behind the scene videos of my private life. And thank you for sending me the coffee to keep me going. Link is in the description of this video. So guys, stay safe, be alert, be prepared, and happy Easter. Bye-bye.